Okay, hello and welcome to Baking at King's. So I'm going to do some cooking club with you over the next few weeks, and we're going to be looking at items that we can create and make that will be really useful at home, but also useful to take into for your life and to be able to make lots of different things. So today we're going to be looking at bread. Bread is a really useful thing, and if you can create your own, if it's not in the shops, then you've got it to hand. And because I know that not everyone at home is going to have ingredients like yeast available, you might not have that in your cupboard, we're going to try and make some bread today without yeast and see how we get on. The first thing we do, most recipes, is we get our stuff together. So we get our recipe together. So what you should see appearing now on the screen is all of the things that you need in your recipe. So you can just pause the screen and have a look through that. I've got my ingredients ready here. This recipe uses cup measurements, and lots of recipes do use cups measurements. I'm really lucky. I have my measurer here that has all the different, I'll show you very closely, it has all the different measurements inside, so I can measure it really easily. But just to show you, if it's talking about cups, we're literally thinking about the size of a cup. So this is my mug, and I've got that's filled up with flour, so that's basically a cup. As long as you're using roughly the same measurements and it's a cup size, you should be fine. So once you've got your ingredients ready, and like I said, you can just pause the screen to get your ingredients ready. The first thing we need to do is we need to put our oven on, so we need to preheat the oven. So we need to get our oven up to a regular heat before we put anything in it. If we put anything in it beforehand, it's going to be getting up to that temperature, and it won't be the right temperature to cook what the item that we have. So for this recipe, we need to put it up to around 190 degrees Celsius. That's about gas mark 5, roughly. So once you've got that on, you'll see the little light here for me. And once that gets to the right temperature, that light goes out. So that's what we're looking for. But by the time we've created our recipe, we will be fine. So for this recipe, we're going to be using flour, and we're going to also be using something called buttermilk to help us with this recipe. Buttermilk. Now, don't worry if you haven't got buttermilk, because I'm going to show you how to make that. And buttermilk's really easy to make if you have milk and either lemon juice or vinegar. And the reason that we're using that is because that basically takes the role of the yeast. So instead of the yeast, we use the buttermilk, which we're going to create, and we use a baking powder, and that reacts together to get the bubbles which form the air pockets in our bread. So we're just substituting something else in. So buttermilk, we need our 1 cup of milk, and then we're going to add a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice to it. So basically what we want is for the milk to go off. We're going to just try and get that going fast. And then we are going to add everything to it, and hopefully that will get that process of the bubbles forming in the mixture and give us that nice airy bread for us. The first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to get my vinegar. Now I would suggest it's better to use cider vinegar or a clear white vinegar. This is the only vinegar I have in the house at the moment, which is malt vinegar. So it will do exactly the same job, but it's not exactly what I would use if I had a choice. And probably the best choice is to use lemon juice. If you've got lemon juice, that's one of the best things to use. So all I'm doing is just adding my vinegar in and just stirring it around, and then I'm just going to leave that while I'm just starting off doing the other bits and pieces, and hopefully, like I say, that will start to curdle the milk slightly. So the milk basically goes a bit curdled, but that's what we want, that's what we're looking for, because that's going to create that reaction for us. So we can put that to one side for now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our flour, and we're going to put the flour into a mixing bowl. So I already measured out 1 cup in there, but I wanted to show you that 1 cup meant 1 cup in here. So I've got 1 cup in there as well. We are then going to get a teaspoon, so I just need to grab a teaspoon. So we need to get a teaspoon, and we are going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. So this is our baking powder. So this is what's going to react to get those bubbles. Don't overheap it. When it talks about teaspoons, we're talking about a flat top here. So we don't want like a big heap up here, otherwise it would be too much. So we're putting that in together, and then we are doing 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and that just gives us a flavour, just gives us a bit of a more flavoursome bread. So we just need about 1/2 of one of those. Okay, so once all that's together, we're just going to give it a bit of a whisk around to mix it. So we're just using a whisk to make sure it gets all across into our flour. So just mixing it around like that. So we're going to be using some techniques today that will be useful as well. We're going to be kneading our dough, so we're going to be trying to make sure that we're using that to work the gluten. So the gluten strands in it are the ones that sort of make it a bit springier. Now there's a few things we need to know about kneading. Firstly, you don't want to overwork it. You don't want to do loads and loads of kneading because those gluten strands are just going to overwork. But we don't want to do too few either because we're not going to get that stretchiness, we're not going to have nice bread. So we kind of need to just give it a nice knead, but we don't need to overdo it. So hopefully by now your milk should have curdled a bit. So like I said, we're looking for that curdled milk. If it hasn't, maybe just give it a little bit longer. So we're just looking for some of the milk to just stay on your spoon a bit really, to make sure we've got that reaction. But like I say, if you haven't had it yet, just give your milk a little bit more time. It takes up to about 5 minutes for that to happen. So mine probably needs a little bit more time, so we'll just leave it for a minute. And as soon as that's done, we can start mixing the dry and wet ingredient together and then kneading it before we get it ready to go into the oven. Okay, so you know your milk is buttermilk. It won't look particularly different, but it will probably look a little bit less translucent. So that's what we're looking for. It doesn't look quite so see-through, it looks a bit more white. So that's basically what we're looking for. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mix our wet and our dry ingredients. I suggest maybe you do this a bit at a time, just so that you don't get it's sort of not quite so messy, and it makes it a little bit easier to stir around. I often stir mine with a knife, I just find it doesn't stick so much to it. So just mix that around. And so already those ingredients are starting to react with each other. Also, if you are mixing it bit by bit, it means that you can look at the consistency. So obviously you don't want it too wet, you don't want to get it too wet. Because it needs to be like dough, like bread dough. So that's what we're looking for. So if you think that it's quite a wet dough and you think, well, that's enough, I think that's the right consistency, then that's fine. You don't have to mix all of the bits in. So once you've done that, you should have your dough in your bowl. And then what we need to do is we need to put a bit of flour down onto our surface. I've just used plain flour for this. So this is just normal plain flour. So you hopefully have got this available to use. So like I said, we're just putting a bit on the table because we don't want it all to stick to us or to stick to the table. And you are going to get messy doing this because it is going to be a bit of a wet dough. So just scrape every bit of the remaining ingredients out. So the way we fold something, the way we knead something, is we're just pushing it away from it and then turning it back in. So pushing it away, turning it back in, pushing it away, and turning it back in. Like I said, we don't need to do this an excessive amount with this bread. We don't need to knead it for hours and hours or a long time. It's not that kind of bread. And it's the flour we're working, the gluten strands in the flour. So we're just pushing it. If you need a bit more flour on the table, that's fine, just get a bit more. You can put it down, put some on the top, put some underneath, just to stop it sticking, so that we can work it. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a round loaf with this. So we're going to make a round shape. Now I've got some pizza dishes that I'm going to put mine onto because they're round already, and they will stop it sticking. But if you've got some baking parchment, you can just put it on a normal baking tray. I mean, you can just put it down on a baking tray, hopefully it will be fine and it won't cause it a problem. It shouldn't stick too much. And the way we know that bread is done, we'll look at this a bit later when we take it out of the oven, what we're looking for is we tap it on the bottom of the bread and it should sound hollow. That's how you know bread's done. So you're looking for something to sound hollow underneath. And if it doesn't sound hollow, it needs to go back in for a bit. Okay, so like I said, we're not overworking this, we're not going too far with it. We're not going to make it so that it's really overly worked. So what you should have is this nice mixed together dough. It shouldn't be a bit of stickiness to it, but it shouldn't be too sticky. So like I say, I'm going to get my tray and I'll put it down on it. So I am actually going to just put a little bit of flour on the bottom of the tray. Again, it just stops it from sticking, so that later we don't have to worry about taking it off. And then we're just going to put that on top like that. And just pat it down, because hopefully what we're going to see is it's going to rise up. So that reaction, and you should actually see that even if you leave it for a minute without touching it, it's already starting to rise up. It's already got that reaction going on in it. So we're going to put some slits on. So this is a sharp knife, so you might need to get someone to help you with this. So I'm just going to slit this two ways. So one way down, one way the other way. That's just going to give us a nice feature once it's done. And then I have my melted butter, and I'm just going to cover the top with melted butter, and this helps brown it as well. So this just helps brown off the bread and makes it taste lovely as well. Now if you want to, if you've got any sesame seeds or poppy seeds or something like that, or pumpkin seeds are quite nice, you can put those over the top as well. And that will just add to the flavour, add to the texture as well, so you might want to think about that as well. Okay, so now we're going to put it in the oven. So we're putting it in the oven for about 40 minutes. And then hopefully after 40 minutes, and also it's not like other breads. Other breads you would need to leave. If you were using yeast, we'd need to leave it somewhere hot for it to prove. But we don't need to do that with this. We don't need to worry about it. We can put it straight into the oven because, like I say, that chemical reaction is different to if we're using yeast. So we can take that, we can put it straight into the oven. And then we can come and see it back later and see how we put on. So you can put yours in the oven and then obviously see how. Okay, so my bread has been in the oven for about 35 minutes now. So we've just got a couple of minutes left. So we're not expecting this bread to rise up loads. It hasn't got the yeast that it allows it to do that. But it should hopefully be quite fluffy like we expect bread to be. And it's really good to eat. This would be really good as well if instead of sort of one big slab, you could make little rolls out of this. So if you wanted to, you could split this into different rolls and make lots of different rolls and then cut them up that way. What would be really nice is also for me to see examples of you with what you've made, to show me that you've been using this stuff as well and following the recipe and the products that you have made from it as well. So once you've made it, make sure you take a picture, post it onto the assignment and upload it to Google Classroom, and then we can celebrate all of the learning that you have done about this baking and all of the products that you end up making. So make sure you share it as much as possible. So in a couple of minutes, or in a minute, less than a minute now, we're going to be able to see my bread to see if it's worked, and I'll show you how to tell if it's done. So we'll be tapping the bottom of it. You do have to be very careful. Obviously the oven is very hot at the moment, so when you're getting out you need to be really careful or get someone else to do that for you because it is going to be really, really hot. Obviously whatever pan you put it on is going to be hot and the bread itself is going to also be very hot. So please be very careful when you're doing that or get someone else to help you out. So if I get my, I'm just going to use a tea towel to get it out with, and then we're going to test what it looks like, and we'll have a look inside as well to see if that has done the effect without the yeast, with that baking powder and the buttermilk. And we're going to be using buttermilk in a couple of other recipes as well. We're going to also be looking at how to make some of our favourite takeaways using that. Okay, so it's beeping, we're ready to go. So the butter that we put on top has done a really good job of browning it. So we still get this nice bready sort of nice brown on top. We've got a nice crust to it, so we can hear that nice crust. Away. So like I said, I'm going to use a tea cloth just to hold it upside down. And see how mine's got little, I'll come over to the camera. Mine's got little dots on it because where I put it in that tin, it's got holes in the bottom. But this is the sound we're hopefully looking for. So it sounds quite hollowy inside. That's the kind of sound we're looking for. So when you knock it, we've got a hollowy sound to it. Now this is going to be very hot, like I said. So what you're going to want to do really is wait for yours to actually cool down before you start handling it really, rather than sort of handling it like I'm doing. But I obviously just want to show you some of what we're looking for. So if I use this piece, so you can see we've got all those holes in there. And they have all been caused by that baking soda and that, you can see the steam coming off it, by the baking soda and the buttermilk. Now I think actually it works much better with lemon. We'll probably get a bit more of that. But we've got exactly what we wanted. We've got bread, so we can eat that. It'd be lovely and yummy. And I'm actually going to go and have mine with some homemade soup. So thank you very much for joining us. You can see that they're all finished and done. Like I said, share your recipes, share your examples, and hopefully, tastes good. Hopefully we can see what you've done as well. So happy baking, and join me next time for King's Cooking Club, and we'll be looking at another recipe that you should easily be able to bake at home. So it's very important to have our baking and getting our baking right, but what's just as important is this part, is making sure you are washing and cleaning up after yourself. So now is the time to go make sure that you have cleaned up after yourself, you've washed everything really thoroughly, and make sure that we're making sure the kitchen is nice and clean, because we don't want to make a big mess for someone else to clean up. So once again, hopefully you've enjoyed baking with us today, and watch out for next week when we'll be doing a bit more baking of something completely different. Thank you very much.